which means that the fat cells that you already have are growing in size. And that's why one of the best ways to be able to help with fat loss is to Hi, my name is Lauren Papanos. I'm a functional medicine registered dietitian that specializes in endocrine or hormone conditions. In today's video, we're going to talk about the 7 key hormone imbalances that can cause belly fat in women. Now, let's get into it. First and foremost, we want to look at, do you have chronically elevated cortisol levels? Now, cortisol is one of our stress hormones. And being that it is a stress hormone, it is a survival hormone. Our body is going to make it at the expense of other hormones, and it's going to do it anytime the body is in a heightened state of stress. Now, acute elevations of cortisol are nothing to worry about, but we're talking about more of these chronic elevations where your body is sensing that it needs to run from a tiger all day long. And the reason why this can cause an increase in belly fat is because when we release cortisol, it increases glucocorticoid production. An increase in glucocorticoids means an increase in blood sugar. And we actually have a large amount of glucocorticoid receptors on our visceral fat in our abdominal region. And so when there is this chronically elevated cortisol that's producing chronically elevated levels of glucocorticoids that are then making lots of sugar, then we have more of that sugar to be able to bind to those receptors in that visceral or abdominal region. And this leads to that cortisol belly or that increase in belly fat in that abdominal or belly region. The second hormone imbalance is insulin. Chronically elevated levels of insulin can increase fat cell growth, which means that the fat cells that you already have are growing in size. And that's why one of the best ways to be able to help with fat loss is to lower insulin levels and improve insulin sensitivity. Fat cell growth happens through insulin by increasing something called hormone sensitive lipase. Insulin activates something called lipoprotein lipase, or LPL, which actually takes fat from our bloodstream and moves it into fat cells. So that's one of the mechanisms of how we're seeing that increase happen in your current fat cells that you already have when insulin is elevated. Insulin also shuts down hormone sensitive lipase, or HSL, which is one of the reasons why when insulin is elevated, your body has a difficult time burning fat that's already in storage. So we see an increase in that fat accumulation into the fat cells, as well as a more difficult time burning stored fat when that insulin hormone is elevated. The third hormone imbalance is estrogen dominance, also connected with low progesterone levels. Estrogen dominance is really when there is higher amounts of estrogen than there are progesterone levels. So we have what's called unopposed estrogen to progesterone. There's not enough progesterone to be able to balance out those estrogen levels. And this oftentimes happens during the perimenopausal to menopausal transition, but can also happen in younger years because of other types of hormone conditions or potentially GI related issues that are causing this elevation in estrogen recycling. When estrogen is dominant and there isn't adequate progesterone to balance it, it actually increases the ability of immature fat cells to be able to grow into mature fat cells. And that's one of the mechanisms of how estrogen increases fat cell growth. We also see that when progesterone levels are low, an increase in fat growth. Low progesterone in itself can also cause an increase in belly fat storage. The main reason is because of the role that progesterone has in sensitizing our thyroid cells to the effects of thyroid hormone. Progesterone is a key hormone to our thyroid hormones functioning optimally, and we're going to talk about in a second why thyroid hormones are so key to metabolism and regulating fat cell size. And we're going to talk about in a minute why thyroid hormones are so key to this process as well. Low DHEA levels can also cause an increase in belly fat. DHEA is a precursor hormone that is important for our ability to make adequate estrogen and testosterone levels. And low DHEA typically happens when we have been overstressing the body. It is an adrenal hormone. It's made by those adrenal glands where cortisol is also made. We see this a lot in individuals that might be over-exercising or overtraining. And if we don't have adequate testosterone levels, it decreases our ability to be able to build muscle. And muscle is extremely metabolically active. For every pound of muscle we have, we burn more calories at rest. It's estimated by about 50 calories for every additional pound of muscle that we have. So we want to ensure that we have adequate testosterone levels to in turn help support our DHEA levels. So we want to ensure that we have adequate testosterone levels to ensure we're able to support that lean muscle tissue. Now, on the other side though, if there's elevated testosterone levels, this can also cause abdominal fat storage. So it really is this Goldilocks of of having adequate testosterone levels to support muscle mass without them being too elevated. We see elevated total testosterone and free testosterone levels in women with conditions like polycystic ovary syndrome or PCOS. And when testosterone becomes elevated, this can also cause abdominal fat storage, as well as other symptoms like facial hair growth and acne. I mentioned earlier how important thyroid hormones are to the process of metabolism. And when there are low free T3 and free T4 levels, which are those free levels of those thyroid hormones, we're going to also see the process of fat metabolism be impacted. Thyroid hormones are key for being able to metabolize the food that we eat and burn it rather than storing it. So when there's low levels, not only are we going to see more storage of the food that we're eating happen, we're also going to typically see issues present with insulin resistance. So our body's going to have more difficulties with blood sugar control and that insulin hormone that can also lead to belly fat storage. And we can also see abnormalities occur with electrolyte balance. And because of this, we can see more issues with water retention. And so it may appear that you are more bloated in the abdominal region because of the increase in water retention that happens when thyroid hormone function is low. Leptin is the final hormone imbalance that can cause belly fat in women. Low leptin levels, as well as leptin resistance, really have a similar effect in how they impact this process. Think of leptin as our fuel gauge hormone. And when leptin levels are low or our body is resistant to it, our body thinks that it needs to continue to store energy rather than burn energy. And this generally is a protective mechanism so that if the body doesn't have enough fat reserves, our body knows that we need to take that food that we're eating and store it for energy. But situations like low leptin can occur if you've been calorically restricting for an extended period of time, or if there isn't adequate carbohydrate intake in the diet. We can also see leptin resistance occur generally alongside of insulin resistance, and leptin resistance is very similar to insulin resistance, where our body isn't making that hormone, we've got plenty of it, but the body isn't actually utilizing that hormone effectively. And so in that situation, the body still thinks that there isn't enough energy on board, and it's still going to store that energy that we consume for energy on our belly, which can cause that appearance of belly fat and can cause more accumulation of that visceral fat. If you love this video, you are going to love my hormonal inflammation lab decoder guide. I get into all of the optimal ranges that we're looking for with all of these key hormones. And if your labs don't come back in the optimal ranges, what it could mean about inflammation and how to address it. You can find the link to download in the notes below, and be sure to hit the bell to subscribe so that you're the first to know whenever I release a new video.